Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. They always say nobody's perfect. If that's true, then I guess I'm just normal. What I mean is, I'm definitely not perfect. My biggest flaw, the one I mostly keep locked down now, is a serious one. I love setting fires. When I was a kid, it was a real problem. That's how I got my nickname, Sparky. My real name isn't even close. It's Tom Baker. Real common name, I know. Can be a pain or a blessing, depending. Anyway, back to Sparky. My older brother, Mark, came up with it when I was 12. It stuck for ages. As I got better at fighting the urge, the spark part faded, but everyone still called me Bake. Sometimes it was awkward having to explain my real name was Tom. My other weird thing is how I react to beer. More than one and I'm out cold. If I manage 2 or more, forget about it, 10 to 12 hours of dead sleep. The beer thing was way easier to live with than the fire thing. I didn't quit drinking altogether, just learned the when, where, and how much I could handle. Around 14, I spent a summer experimenting with my fire skills. A few garages and sheds in the neighborhood paid the price. Of course, I quickly figured out this wasn't something you share with your buddies or your folks. Luckily, I was young and sloppy, so I got caught pretty fast and went through the whole legal and shrink routine. But the fascination with fire never really left me. I spent a lot of time reading up on it and playing around, but always careful not to get caught again. Growing up wasn't a picnic apart from that. My older brother, Mark, was golden boy, always the star. I had to fight just to keep up. He became some brainy academic, a sports hero, and a total ladies' man. Being his little brother didn't do much for my ego. The happiest day of my young life was when he finally left for college on a full ride. Somehow, clumsy as I was, I finished high school and landed a job as a roofer. I actually liked it. Maybe I had some kind of attention thing because I could never stick to a job for more than a few days. Roofing helped with that. Every job was new, and I'd usually finish before I got bored. It worked out pretty well. As time went on, I got better at controlling my affliction. 10 years after high school, I finally met a girl and we started something real. Another year and I was asking her to marry me. Lisa was pretty damn perfect as far as girls go. I wasn't that picky, but I honestly couldn't find anything wrong with her. Pretty brown hair, nice skin, cute figure. As soon as we saved enough, we bought a little house to start a family. Things were perfect until my brother, Mark, decided to come home for a visit. He'd finished college and was working as an electrical engineer for some big chemical company down in the Carolinas. I hadn't seen him in almost 10 years, and honestly, I wasn't exactly thrilled about it. We all met up at Mom and Dad's for a mini-family thing. Mark had just come back from the mountains where he'd bought a cabin on 10 acres of woods. Looked more like a lodge in the pictures. He was planning an open house for Labor Day weekend and gave us all these detailed directions. Mark's wife, Sarah, confusing, I know, and their 2 kids were still in North Carolina. He was eager for us to meet them at the cabin later that summer. Things were going better than I expected until I noticed Lisa and Mark getting a little too friendly. I expected my wife to be polite, but the way she was with Mark wasn't normal. She was flirting and he was eating it up. Suddenly, all the reasons I used to resent my brother came flooding back. He was leaving the next day, so I didn't want to cause a scene. I forced myself to hang out with Dad more than I wanted to, just to avoid seeing Lisa and Mark together. It was almost time for us to go home when Lisa dropped the bomb. She'd invited Mark to stay overnight in our guest room. I could have strangled her right there. It got worse when she said she was going to ride back to our place with Mark because she'd never been in a Mercedes. I knew it was a lie, but honestly, I didn't even care anymore. I tried my best not to let my anger show. This was the last thing I expected from Lisa, but she'd never met Mark before. He was good-looking and could sweet-talk anyone into anything. Lisa spent way too much time showing him around the house, telling him her decorating plans for every room. We finally sat down to relax when Lisa brought out a couple of beers. Normally, I drink maybe 2 or 3 beers a month, and only when I'm staying home and going straight to bed. Mark looked over and grinned as he started chugging his. Lisa had a glass of wine she was slowly sipping. "Hey, we've got those fancy mixed nuts in the pantry." "Hold on a sec," I said, heading to the kitchen. The nice thing about those green beer bottles is you can't see what's inside. The beer went down the sink. I came back with the nuts and a bottle of tap water. Up until this point, I was still trying to give Lisa the benefit of the doubt. We chatted for about 20 minutes, and then she reappeared with 2 more green bottles. Now I knew something was up between Mark and Lisa. They both knew about my beer problem, and they both seemed to be using it. I don't know what Mark did or said to Lisa, or even when he did it. Maybe they planned it all during that short car ride back to our place. It didn't really matter. I excused myself to use the bathroom. The beer went down the toilet with my piss, and I came back with another full bottle of water. I saw the smirk on Mark's face as I took a big gulp. That really ticked me off. But when I saw Lisa smile, I felt a surge of pure rage. Normally, after 2 beers, I'm done for the night. It was easy to fake being sleepy. I even put on a show of trying to stay awake. I finished the water in the second bottle and slowly walked into the kitchen. I made a big deal of throwing the empty away and opening the fridge to get a fresh one. When I returned with the third bottle of water, Mark was grinning like an idiot, and Lisa was blushing. I finished the water quickly, closed my eyes, and started breathing heavily, like I was out cold. My wife and my brother whispered quietly as they turned off the living room lights and headed down the hall to the bedroom. They both thought I'd be out for the night, dead to the world. I waited about 20 minutes and then walked quietly down to the bedroom. The door wasn't even latched. Moonlight from the window made it easy to see them on our bed. They had no idea I was there, watching. The night was still young, and I had a 3-hour drive ahead of me. I'll say this, Mark drew a good map. I had no trouble finding his cabin in the woods. Beautiful place. Had to have cost him a fortune. 30 minutes later, I was on my way home, and the cabin was a huge orange ball in my rearview mirror. I parked down the street from our house, out of sight, just as the sun was coming up. Suddenly, Lisa appeared at the front door. She looked around, and when she saw my truck was gone, she hurried back inside. 10 minutes later, Mark came rushing out, hopped into his precious Mercedes, and sped off down the street. It was still early, so I went to the local diner for breakfast. Lisa started work around 8. By 10 after 8, our precious home and our life savings went up in smoke. I stood by my truck for a second to make sure it started okay, then headed downtown to close our accounts. I only managed to scrape together a couple of thousand. We weren't rich, and buying the house had drained us. When I got back to the house, police cars and fire trucks were everywhere. Lisa was there talking to the police. I walked over to her, focused, and slid one of my special packages under the passenger side of her car. Gasoline and styrofoam mix with a little igniter from a remote-controlled car. I'm not sure, but I think Lisa saw me driving away as her precious little Ford burst into flames. My work there was done. Time to move on. I'd never been to North Carolina before. Pretty, but I wouldn't want to live there. Took me 2 days to find where Mark lived. Damn, his house was nicer than the cabin. Must have been around 6,000 square feet, with a 3-car garage. I had to park several blocks away to watch the place. My old truck would have looked suspicious in that neighborhood. I never saw Mark, but his wife, Sarah the other one, brought their 2 kids out to catch the school bus. A little while later, she backed out of the garage in a Subaru wagon with a real estate company tag on the front. Getting into the house was easy. You'd think they'd have a security system, but nope. Who would dare rob Golden Boy Mark? He wasn't home, but his Mercedes was in the garage, along with a nice-looking Harley. Actually, a big Harley. I did a quick sweep of the house to make sure it was empty and found. It wasn't. There was a cat litter box in the laundry room, but no cat. I spent a few minutes looking, then decided to use the can opener I found. 10 seconds later, a tabby showed up, looking for food. A few minutes after that, he was comfortable in the cat carrier I found in the garage. Old North Realtors wasn't hard to find. Only had to ask for directions once. I walked in and asked for Sarah Miller. A short while later, she came out, and I handed her the cat carrier. She looked at the cat, then at me just for a second. Oh no, Bake, you didn't. Please say you didn't. We'd never met, but she instantly knew who I was. I'm sorry it had to be done. I didn't want to hurt your cat. Why, Bake, why? What was so bad that you'd burn down your own brother's house? You'll have to ask him. I'll call you in a week. If he hasn't told you by then, I will. We were interrupted by an excited man rushing in. Call the fire department. There's a car burning in the parking lot. Hurry. Sarah looked at me, and I just shrugged and turned away. I heard the office secretary telling my sister-in-law that the fire department was at her house as I walked out. At that point, my rage was satisfied. I was still angry, but the urge to burn things had faded. I headed west for a while, then south. Spent a few days in northern Alabama. Lots of roofing work going on, thanks to some bad hailstorms. The problem was all the roofers seemed to be Mexican, working in teams, and their work was excellent. My chances of getting work looked slim until I saw an ad in the local paper for insurance roofing inspectors. I tried to clean myself up as best I could with the few clothes I had. Apparently, it was enough because I got the job right away. They paid to send me to Mobile for 2 weeks of training, and then I was a fully qualified insurance adjuster for a major company. They had so many claims pending, I had enough work to keep me busy for at least 6 months. I used my real name and social security number, no problem. I'm sure a few law enforcement agencies were looking for me, but not in Alabama. I got a small apartment and then sold my old truck. The insurance company gave me a vehicle plus money for gas and maintenance. I did my job and I did it well. Everyone was happy. I kept my nose clean and stayed out of trouble. Shortly after settling in, I called my brother's wife, Sarah. She said Mark claimed to have no idea what drove me to go on my arson spree. I'd promised to tell her what happened if Mark didn't, but I changed my mind. I told her that since he refused to be honest, I'd have to return at a later date. She sounded worried when I hung up. My new job forced me to clean up my act. Regular haircuts, trimmed beard, shaving every day. Grooming habits I knew about but never bothered with. Maybe that's why it took me so long to find a wife or keep a girlfriend. I usually ate supper at a fast food place, occasionally a sit-down restaurant. Lunch was always whatever I could grab. Being the world's worst drinker, I avoided bars. Every month or so I called home. My parents made it clear they were disappointed in what I'd done. I never gave them an explanation or an excuse. Finally, after about 6 months, Lisa told them the truth. Because of the childhood stuff between Mark and me, they were sympathetic to the problem. Mark suddenly fell out of their good graces. Dad confronted him, and he denied everything. Luckily for me, they believed Lisa. She was trying to find out where I was and what I planned to do about the marriage. She'd been living with her sister since the house burned down. That was the last time they ever mentioned her. The calls with my parents after that never included Mark or Lisa. They knew the only way I'd keep calling was if they avoided those two subjects. I did my job well. A lot of the local churches offered free English as a second language classes. Soon I was sitting in on them learning Spanish. I made a few friends during this time. Some were roofers I'd met while working. There were also bricklayers, carpenters, and concrete workers. They worked their butts off during the day but never missed their ESL classes at night. They'd joke about their kids who went to public schools and spoke perfect English with no accent. Many of the wives attended the classes with them. My employer soon considered me bilingual. I never learned to speak proper Spanish, but I could hold a conversation with working people. There was never any investigation into my fires. I'm sure there were police reports, and my name was on all of them, but nobody ever came looking for me. I used my own social security number on all my work papers and even filed proper taxes. Nothing. I'd been gone for about 2 years when Dad had a stroke. By the time I found out, he was home but needed a lot of care. Mom asked if I could come home to see him. I couldn't refuse. I took 2 weeks off work and bought a used Focus, just like Lisa used to drive. Cheap and good on gas. After filling the trunk with some of my toys, I was on my way. I got a motel about 30 miles from home, just in case anyone was still looking. I spent the first day with my parents, catching up on the news. Mark and Sarah, the first one, had built a new house, bigger and fancier than the old one. Dad winked when Mom gave me their new address. In case you want to send them a Christmas card. I think I had an ally there. Lisa had stopped calling or visiting. They hadn't heard anything from the police or insurance companies in over a year. They wanted me to stay at the house, but I insisted on going back to the motel. It was late when I left, but I decided to drive by Lisa's sister's house. I was sitting outside when a huge, jacked-up pickup truck pulled up. The couple inside kissed for a few minutes. Then my wife stepped out and walked up to the house. The guy waited until she got to the door, which I thought was considerate. She turned to him, smiled, and waved before going in. I was glad I'd brought some playthings with me. There was an all-night diner a few miles away. Looked like my wife's new boyfriend needed to refuel. He parked right in the middle of the lot, so nobody could ding his fancy truck. I parked on the side and walked over to give the Dodge a special checkout. He took a booth by the front window and had just ordered as I walked up to his table. "Is that your Hemi out there?" "Yeah, why?" "Just saw you come in. That's a nice piece of machinery. Mind if I sit down?" He just nodded, and I waved the waitress over. Something like that must have cost a pretty penny. It was a statement, but I phrased it as a question. The truck cost me $36, but I've got over 10 in accessories. I never did get his name, but we talked about his truck for the next 20 minutes. I just had coffee. He had the midnight breakfast special. "Don't want to seem nosy, but aren't you the guy who's dating Lisa Baker?" "Yeah, you know her?" he asked. "We went to high school together. Thought she was married." Another comment posed as a question. "She is, but he's long gone. Cops are after him for burning down his own house." "Dumb. Why'd he do that?" I asked. Lisa said he caught her messing around with his brother. Burned down his brother's house too. She admits she was sleeping with his brother? I asked innocently. "Yeah, she said the husband wasn't cutting it in the bedroom, so she had to look elsewhere. I'm helping her out now." "That's cold. Why didn't she just divorce him?" I asked. "I don't know, you'd have to ask her. What's with all the questions, dude? Just curious. Aren't you afraid he might find out about you and his wife?" "No way. He's long gone, and if he did come back, I'd beat the crap out of his wimpy ass." I gave him a big grin, and he got a strange look on his face. "Wrong answer, dude." His eyes went wide as I held up the remote control and pressed the button. The homemade napalm instantly engulfed the Dodge. He knocked over his chair as he stood up in surprise. "Say hello to my wife for me." Nobody saw me leave the diner because they were all staring at the huge, flaming pile of metal in the front parking lot. I drove very carefully back to the motel and decided to check out 6 hours later. I was in North Carolina, looking at my brother Mark's new house. I was expecting to see him leave for work, the kids leave for school, and then his wife Sarah go to her office. It didn't work out that way. A couple of police cars and a security company van showed up around the same time. The garage door was open, and Sarah was busy loading the kids and a few bags into her new Volvo wagon. The last thing she put in was the cat carrier. Someone had tipped off my brother that I was on a roll. I'm not stupid. I could do what I had to do another time. I quietly left the neighborhood and headed west toward the interstate. Just outside of Knoxville, my cell phone rang. It was Sarah. Bake, I know. I know now. He didn't tell you, did he? I asked. No, but I figured it out. How did you? She called early this morning, called Mark and told him what you did to her boyfriend, or should I say, to his truck. It all made sense then. Mark screwed Lisa, didn't he, Bake? That son of a bitch screwed his own brother's wife. I'm sorry, Sarah. I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't. I was hoping you could get him to confess. She wasn't the only one, Sarah. There were others, and there will be more. I have to end it. Or at least, as far as I'm concerned. I didn't know what to say. It was obvious my sister-in-law needed to talk to someone about this mess. But I wasn't exactly the best choice. I'm sorry, Bake, for what I have to do. I'm going to do it for you, but I'm going to say it was you who did it. Will you be upset with me? The way she said it, it sounded almost like a riddle, but I knew exactly what she meant. It's okay, Sarah. I'm so far in now, it won't matter. Make it easy on yourself. Looks like nobody knows where I am anyway. Sarah, if you're going to do it right. Don't rush and don't be sloppy. Plan ahead. And make sure the cat is safe. I heard her laugh softly on the other end just before we hung up. 2 months later, my brother lost his second big house. According to Mom and Dad, Sarah told the police she'd seen me at the house the day before the fire. The fire department was baffled because the more water they poured on the fire, the faster it seemed to burn. Sarah had done her research on accelerants. Good girl. A week after the fire, Sarah filed for divorce. She was sharp, and I was sure she'd take him for everything he had. Lisa's boyfriend blamed her for the loss of his truck, and she ended up in the hospital. He ended up in jail, of course. He knew she had nothing to do with the fire, but I wasn't available for questioning. I think I'm ready to file for divorce myself, but under the circumstances, I don't know how to go about it. All I can do is hope Lisa files under abandonment. I just found out I'm up for a promotion at work. I also found out that the company I work for is the same one my brother used to insure his homes. What a dark little twist of fate. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.